Author's Press.
Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. And on the line with us today, we have Rita M. Emery. We'll be discussing her fantastic book, Wildfire, Woodpecker's Amazing Adventure, available for purchase directly to her personal site, author RitaEmery.com. There you'll find more information on Rita herself, more information on this fantastic narrative, as well as find hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing page. So one more time, that's author RitaEmery.com. Guys, and I will say that Rita was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. Authors Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, make sure you're doing yourself a favor and you're contacting our great friends over at Authors Press. You can find out more information on them at authorspress.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Rita here on the line. Now, the moment you go to her website, authorRitaEmery.com, the moment you start to do any research on Wildfire, Woodpecker's Amazing Adventure, you instantly understand what we're discussing today. Now, it's a short book, okay? It's an easy read, but it's a first-hand perspective, okay? It's an in-depth perspective of what happens in the day-to-day life inside of a wildlife center. So we're going to be learning about the animals. We're going to be learning about the treatments. So it's so educational. It's fun. It's just going to be a wonderful journey for you to take by yourself, a wonderful journey for you to take with your children, or a fantastic gift for you to get for someone else's. And listen, Rita is the expert. Okay, she's written the book, she's done the research, and she's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Rita, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
Fine today. We have some sunshine today, so that's good.
There you have it. There you have it. Well, that's always wonderful to hear. Enjoy that sunshine. Soak it up. Soak it in. And Rita, it is an absolute pleasure to have you as a guest with us today, and I know we have so much information to cover. But before we go into the book, let's hold off slightly. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself and your background, please.
I'm a former school teacher, taught 30 years, and then I retired. Then I went with a colleague and worked with an after-school program. And then I decided I needed something else to do, so I went to the Wildlife Center, and I've been there now for 8 years. And that Wildlife Center has been a very rewarding experience, and I was able to relate working with the Wildlife Center and with people, how everything is the same when you're not well or have a broken bone or something. And then there, this happened with the after school program. I had a class of students who were learning how just to write. And I had a group of 5 girls, and they said, well, we'll write if you write. And this is how this got started. I thought, gee, I think I'll write about the woodpecker that I've seen come in, and he's getting well to go back to the wild. And this is how this all got started.
Fantastic. So much to unpack there. First and foremost, Rita, thank you very much. My listening audience knows this. I had a very brief stint in education myself. I taught for about 4 years. My significant other, now she's a high school teacher. She's been teaching for about 15 years so far. And I will be the first person to tell you here on our network, thank you very much for all of the work and dedication that you put in, helping to educate, shape, and mold the minds of future generations, because anybody that has been in that realm, in that world, understands teachers, A, never get the amount of credit that they deserve for all of the work that they put in. And B, listen, you may be a history teacher, a math teacher, a science teacher, whatever subject you're teaching. We know that as an educator, that is not the only hat you're wearing. Okay, certain days you're going to be a math teacher, other days you're going to be a therapist, other days you're going to be a referee, sometimes you're going to be a friend. I mean, the list goes on. And educators are so incredibly important. And again, they never receive the amount of credit they deserve. So thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Rita, without further ado, I know we started to go into a brief description of what to expect inside your book, but let's go a little bit more in depth. Give us a synopsis of what Wildfire Woodpecker's amazing adventure entails.
Well, one day we had a fire up here in Northern California, and they brought in some of the wildlife that was injured in the fire, of which some did not make it. So I took an interest in this woodpecker because I love woodpeckers to begin with, and I watched how they were going to treat it because it came in with some severe injuries, but injuries that he could recover from. I thought, okay, this will be interesting. So every day when I went there to work, my days, I would make notes of what was taking place, and then I went to a couple areas where woodpeckers are, where they basically lived, to watch how they lived, how they took what they did during the day. And I said to myself, I think maybe I'll write a book after my students asked me to write a book. And that's how I got started. And the most important thing I wanted to bring across was there is no difference of a person going to the doctor or bringing a critter to the wildlife center to go to the doctor and to get well and to be able to go back to the wildlife where he was. And just same thing with a kid. When he gets well, he gets to go home and do the things he wanted. So I wanted to make that relationship to show that no difference. We're all alike, really, when it comes to it.
Now, Rita, the next concept that I want to go into is the concept of inspiration. Now, we know how this book formulated and really how that came about and came to fruition. Going even further down that rabbit hole, though, Rita, with your background, did you always have a love or a passion for writing? Were there particular artists or writers that inspired you growing up? What inspired you to really dive fully into this creative writing career and write the book?
Well, I think after I retired, I wanted to do something else besides, I didn't want to sit at home and 2 cats. What I decided to do there, I looked at what kind of workshops there were available and things, and I saw a writing class, and I thought, I think I'll just go sign up and see what this is like, figuring that, I can leave anytime I want to and drop out. I do a lot of poetry writing. I write about my teams, I write about my classes, I make poetry of my students and things like that. I just did basically poetry, but this was a writing class, and I thought, I'll go try this. On the back of my mind, I always had these 5 students telling me, well, if you write, we will write. And also, I think another inspiration I had was I was told in high school that I basically wouldn't amount to anything because all I had my interests were in sports. But as I grew older, I developed other interests. So I went to the writing class, and I thought, well, this is pretty interesting. I'll try it. So we met once a month, and I wrote. And they became interested in what I was writing, and I thought, this is interesting. I think I'll stick with this. So it took me over 5 years to write this book and to make sure the way I wanted it written and how I liked it. And plus to find an illustrator. Found a great illustrator. She used to work for the jelly bean factory here in Fairfield. And very impressed with her artistic work. And I wanted this and this just to see what she would do. We kept writing. And then one thing in this writing class was you bring in something that you wrote and you read it to the group and they help you correct it or how to make it better along with the instructors. This is how this all developed over a period of 5 years.
Again, here in the line with Rita M. Emery. We're discussing her wonderful book, Wildfire Woodpecker's Amazing Adventure. Available for purchase directly through her personal site, author RitaEmery.com. Rita, next question that I'd love to get into. So we know about the book. We know about what inspired you to become a writer, what inspired you to write this particular book. Now I'm curious, what's next, right? In the near future, will you follow up with another book?
Well, I'm also toying with the idea. I work with possums at the Wildlife Center. I work with a possum to become an educational ambassador, which means that possum, when we have shows, will go to schools or to clubs or birthday parties or just on site. We show these animals off. They're the ones that could be rehabbed, but they could not go back to the Wildlife Center. So we use them for our ambassadors. And so I'm looking at the possums. Possums don't live very long, so I've worked with 8 possums during this time that I've been at the Wildlife Center. One is different and very rewarding, and they have amazing story too. I've had people tell me they think they're my pets, but they're not my pets. They're wildlife, and you have to treat them. And so I've been thinking about maybe doing a book about the possums that I've worked with and become educational ambassadors, people to see.
And what would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting before you began this journey?
I think the highlight of the whole thing is I look back what I was told in high school. I wasn't going to really amount to anything. And I think I surprised myself that I could actually sit down and spend this much time on a project and to make it a worthwhile book. And I geared it to the children because that's the group I was interested in. That's the group I worked with. And to this day, I'm surprised at all the attention the book has received. I still can't wake myself up every morning pinching myself. Is this all for real?
There you have it. There you have it. And as we start to close out of this fantastic interview, Rita, last couple of questions here. What do you want your readers to learn from this book?
I think there's 2 things. One, dangers of a forest fire, what it does to the wildlife. Number 2 is I want them to know that they get treated just as well as you do, and to make their life as best or better than they were when they came in. And hopefully they can return to the wildlife, just like you can return back home. Or you have to, like in assisted living, where these animals go to different wildlife centers to live the remaining life.
I love having this platform. Okay, I'm an artist myself, but I'm in a different medium. I'm an actor and a filmmaker based here in Los Angeles, but I love having this platform to be able to pay it forward, in a sense, to other artists out there listening in. Now, in this instance, other writers out there. Now, even though this is your first book, you are someone that has been writing for a number of years. You're someone that has not only creatively put this book together, but you've also taken it a step further and gotten the book published. And anybody that's been through the process understands writing the book is only half the battle. So since we have you here on the line, Rita, I'd love to take this opportunity to pick your brain, learn any words of wisdom that you can relay to a new writer, someone just starting out.
I think, first of all, you have to be patient, and you have to realize this is not an overnight project. It takes time, it takes patience, and every time you think of something, write it down. Even if it means you have to wake up in the middle of the night to write something down because you won't remember it the next morning. And the other thing is, believe in what you're doing. That was the hardest part for me, is to believe that I could do something like this. And I just kept at it, and even though sometimes the criticism from my writing group was harsh, I thought, you went with it and you said, you know what, that was a good point. Because after I came home and sat down and we taped everything through my mind, what that was said, and went back and looked at it, I'm going, oh, that's a better way to put that, okay? So you just have to be patient and tolerant of other people's criticism and things, because they're not meant to be to discourage you. it's really encouragement that in the end that I said to myself, this whole project was very encouraging, even though at times I thought, forget this. Sure did. And like I said, I pinch myself now every morning because the book is published. I still cannot believe it.
I mean, guys, listen, that's one of the biggest cliches in the book, right? Patience is a virtue. But there's a reason why it's a cliche, because it's steeped in reality. It's true. Patience is not an easy thing to come by. Okay, and when you finally receive it, it truly is virtuous. I mean, it's wonderful. It's incredible, and it's definitely something to keep in mind. Wonderful, fantastic advice for any writers out there, and really just anyone out there, guys. Patience is everything. Patience you need in relationships. You need it with regards to work, with regards to a career, with regards to sport. I mean, everything. I'm sure you can find an applicable place for it. I absolutely love that. I know you do as well. But you guys, you know what I love even more? Is we're at the end of the interview now. We've discussed so much information, and yet we've barely scratched the surface. There's still so much left to be discovered, and that's why author RitaEmery.com are the places you have to go. Wildfire, Woodpecker's Amazing Adventure is the title you have to pick up, and Rita M. Emery is the author you have to thank for bringing it to your table. Fantastic. You know what you have to do. Pick up your copy. You surely will not be disappointed. Rita, this has been such an honor. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you very much for having me.